And the stream is back. I wish I could fix it for tomorrow, but I can't. That's the issue.
It's not a problem you can fix, I'm afraid, Lido. It's just bad internet. It happens sometimes.
So, we were at what have we not said the stream? What we said very often, but not so much in the recent times. Riddle me this.
I don't know. I've been waiting on bated breath while your internet caught up to find out what it is.
It has to do with the timing tower.
Is it about tires?
What? In the timing tower?
Or just how? Oh, the timing tower. Oh! Oh, it's that we've got four manufacturers in the top 4.
Very much so, and now even with a brand new manufacturer in there, we still have 4 different cars in the top 4. Isn't that beautiful?
It's pretty good. If only Alexandra Brad was a little bit further up the track, we could have made it the perfect 5.
You would have needed Joachim Thunder in there. Gap between Adrian Lunio and Eric Häusler up front is staying pretty consistent, though.
Yeah, they both seem to have fairly good pace here. Not saying that Dominic Ladler's is bad pace by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, those two do seem to have a bit more pace than the Aston Martin right now. Speaking of tyres, though, do you think anyone's going to stop for tyres?
Well, it's a 10-lap race. We have seen lots of 8-lap races, or in general, like 60-minute races without tire changing. The go-to strategy in RCL as well goes for no tire changes. I don't think so that we will really see tire changes here today. At least not within the top 5. But if so, we will see them probably next lap.
Yeah, you'd think if somebody was going to change tyres, there's no point leaving it to the end to do that. And getting minimal benefit of new set of rubber.
We had quite some interesting strategies in the 2.4 hour race, where we had some people, of course you have to come in after 3 laps with normal fuel usage, but on the other hand, it's interesting to see how some people then chose just a normal 2-stopper going in after lap 3 and then extending as much as possible. Some did a 2-stopper without any fuel saving. And mixed it up quite well, didn't it?
Yeah, we had some really interesting strategies in the 2.4 hour race. I was surprised. We were all talking about it a bit kind of behind the scenes and kind of assuming that it would be fairly similar for everyone's strategies, but it was good to see people mixing it up and trying new things.
Again, going a bit wide, while we are on board with Pascal Jordan. But I mean, as said previously in the stream, or one of the many streams, if you go with the Twitch notifications, the positions P2 to P5 are all P3 to P6 in the current standings. Remco Meyer will drop below all of them if they finish this way, so realistically also P2 to P5 in the standings. Adrian Lunio being the championship leader and also the leader in this race. So every position you make up here on track will maybe also influence your position later on in the standings.
Yeah, for sure they've got some. It's all kind of come down to this last round, which has been good for the series, and it makes for good watching. And also, you know, these guys are going to put up a fight, and none of them are willing to sit down and accept the points they've got and let that be the end of it.
Not quite close enough on the Döttinger Höhe. Does make up some time, the BMW being a bit better on the straight as the Aston Martin, as we also previously talked on.
Yeah, the BMW is no slouch in a straight line, is it? It's fairly quick.
Not if you go by the ESL R1 reviews. Of course, also down to BOP, and they are fighting for a couple of thousands. We are, of course, well within the 10th region at times, but yeah, the Aston Martin is definitely a car that is stronger in the more technical sections. Slala demonstrates it with a bit of a drift through Yokohama S. Of course, tire management is also a thing in this race. With 10 laps, and you probably won't change tires. At least I can't really imagine that most people will do it. You also do have to watch out for your tires quite a bit, and if you wear them unevenly, yeah, it can really hurt in the long run, can it?
Yeah, you're gonna have to look after them. It's tires can get pretty beat up at the minute on RENNSPORT in the longer races. So you're gonna have to make sure that you're looking after your tires if you want to hold them for the entire length of this race, for sure. The Nordschleife isn't exactly kind on tires. There are worse circuits for sure, but when you've got to go all 25 kilometers of a lap, you don't want to be doing that on broken tires.
Yeah, it certainly isn't Jeddah or something like that.
No, for sure.
But look how close Pascal John is now to Dominic Lala. I mean, if you watch into your rear view camera in this case, and all you see is that BMW M4 grill, basically. What do you think?
Especially because it's been creeping up on him slowly for the last lap or so. He's probably been trying to shake it off pretty hard, and nothing seems to have worked. Joel's music is playing in Dominic Ladler's ears.
It's a pretty big shark, I swear.
I think the M4 is probably one of the biggest cars, cross-sectionally at least, we have in RENNSPORT, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, very much.
It's not got the length of the AMG, but it's far more kind of imposing in your rearview mirror.
I think even in terms of length, they don't really have much on either. But if you stood next to them in real life, and what you actually could when you visited the RENNSPORT Summit in Munich last year, there's the AMG and M4 GT3 and the Porsche 911 992 GT3 there. It is by far the biggest GT3 alongside the Bentley probably that's out there. And I mean, there are cars like the RCF still in use, which are also kind of chonkers, but not this chonky. They are kind of impressive in how big they are.
Yeah.
But especially if you see the Porsche, the Vantage, or the R8 alongside them, which were on the shorter and smaller side of the G3 field. Yeah, that is a big difference.
It always kind of surprises me just how small the McLaren 720 is compared to the others as well. It seems so tiny compared to the other cars.
Yeah, it is. Very beautiful though.
It is, yeah. I've not seen the GT version, but I've seen a couple of road ones, and Yeah, they don't take up a lot of space in a car parking space, we'll put it that way.
They are long, very long. But what
But
also
yeah,
goes on for long is this fight between Dominic Lala and Pascal Jordan.
Yeah, we don't have the likes of the Bentley or the M6, which were both absolute buses compared to the rest of the GT3 field, or the NSX.
Of course, no bias towards the NSX from my side, but I really like them. But what we see here right now is a beautiful demonstration of it's easy to get close, it's hard to get past. And I mean, Dominic Ladler might be one of the best defenders we currently have on RENNSPORT. He's not overly defensive, but he just knows where he needs to be fast, basically. Which is worth so much.
And if you know the Nordschleife, which I'm fairly sure he does by now, then you can definitely make a nuisance of yourself.
It's actually a little bit of a touch out of the carousel.
Yeah, I think Jordan was trying to get a decent drive out of there and maybe didn't quite notice that Dominic Ladler's wasn't quite as good.
Both not being that aggressive anymore with the curbs as we've seen in previous stages of the race. They used to just throw it over the curves, but they're a bit more cautious with it now.
Yeah, I think Ladler doesn't want to give too many chances away. He knows that if he can just stay defensive and not do anything crazy, then he can keep Pascal Jordan behind him for a little bit longer. Whereas if he starts jumping curbs and being a bit more aggressive with his lines, then he might give more chances away to Pascal Jordan.
Where he needs a gap will be at the exit of Galgenkopf. And Jordan did a bit of a mess exiting Ice Curve, went a bit on the curb, which loses you quite a lot of grip if you don't fully commit to it. And he's now 1 second behind. 1 second usually isn't enough to just slingshot past or even get alongside on the Döttinger Höhe.
No, you want to be a bit closer than that normally. Unless he really wants to push things.
This one might get tight here between the two of them. If Jordan can get a good exit and keep this 6/10 gap to Ladler exiting, he might have a shot, but I think it will be tight.
Got a good drive up the hill. But he just doesn't seem to be closing fast enough to be able to make the overtaking move here. Of course, he's got turn 1 and 2 to go. So he's still got opportunities.
And he's not quite close enough, but if he can now keep it basically on the back bumper of Dominic Ladler here through Hohenrhein, he might have a shot, as he said, in turn 1 and 2. And he does have a decent exit. Where does Dominic Ladler go now?
He was running very wide there and brushing the wall.
Ladler defends the inside line, side by side down into turn 1. Both lines can work around here. Ladler the long way around, exiting Yokohama, still there. Trying to cross over.
Keeping the inside.
I think with this, Jordan's got it. So Jordan up into the podium positions. But now the technical part coming up, entering the Nordschleife. Maybe Dominic Lava is able to use his car to an advantage there, as he did with Lunio earlier in this race. But of course it's very hard to pass there, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. Gladly being able to keep up with him here is good, but I think past the GP circuit, getting doing an overtaking move is a lot more difficult.
Well, he is certainly not shaken off that easily by Pascal Jordan.
Up front of the race, not exactly an immediate worry, but Eric Hausler is closing up on Adrian Luneau quite effectively right now. Hausler has set the fastest lap of the race, doing an 8:08, which is pretty quick.
Yeah, it very much is, and I mean, what's more important is that it's currently 5 seconds faster than his opposition.
Yeah, Adrian Luneau's last lap was an 8:12, but obviously not being valid, so it's not counting in the best lap times. Adrian Luneau using all of his track cuts he has available to him.
We are just about to finish the distance that we would usually cover in a RENNSPORT Community League race. We still have quite some time left to go. In-game, it's currently about 4 PM. We started at 8 AM. So we will drive into the darkness a bit, at least into the sunset.
So this is the second season of the RENNSPORT Founders League here, Lino. When do you think you're gonna pull the plug on damage on this series?
Well, it's not necessarily only my call to make. All I can say is, of course, now that we are already talking about seasons and all that kind of stuff, there will be a third season this year. And as a matter of fact, in 2 weeks it will start. And in general, the Founders League will have a finish in 2024 as well. After that, it will be rebranded into something different, and with that, maybe damage will come. Who knows?
Fair enough.
But before that happens, the RENNSPORT Founders League will be, well, I don't want to spoil anything too much for the season that comes after the next one, but Season 3 will be happening, and it will be a bit short. It will only have 3 races, but only with the more successful, let's say, cars, with the more popular races we had in the first 2 seasons. It will kick off with the touring cars, with the front-wheel drive cars, which in Season 1 were won by this man, Adrian Lunio. He's now lapping Alexander Robert. And the second race in the GT4s, I think the first one were won by Maximilian Dehn and the second one also by Lunio here, but, well, this man, Pascal Jordan, he put up a great fight in that race. And the third race, of course, again, being with GT3s. I mean, you can't go any better than Nordschleife GT3s, can you?
No, it's a staple of sim racing for sure, and but there's a reason for that, and that's because it's good.
But I mean, not only in sim racing.
No, that's, yeah.
It's kind of mental to think that at some stage they basically raced what today are LMDH cars around this track. But,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the GT3s of nowadays, they are actually not too far apart from that pace that we used to see many years ago.
Have you tried driving one of the hypercars around here?
I have, because somebody in the moderator team thought it would be a good idea to put the hypercars into the Founders League. Oh, and Dominic Ladler used the lap car of
brilliant
Alexander Verbat.
overtake.
Just noticed to get past Pascal Jordan again. And look what a situation we have now again.
That was a brilliant move by Ladler, just judging it as they came up to the traffic. Pascal Jordan went to the right, Ladler went to the left, and just absolutely sent it. It was an amazing move.
But if they don't come in this lap, I doubt we will see anyone in the pits.
No. I'd agree with you there.
But more
I believe 10 laps is race distance?
10 laps is race distance. We are right now in lap 6. So we still have 4 laps to go after this one. But it just wouldn't be worth trying. But Pascal John is too far away.
Yeah, once again, just not quite having the speed difference to catch up there.
But we've also seen the rear step out there through Ronai, so maybe he's starting to struggle with the rears as well. Maybe it makes passing Dominic Ladler once again a bit more challenging than the last time.
Yeah, he's dropping back a little bit coming down the start-finish straight here. He's nowhere near as close as he was last lap. So we're not going to see the same turn 1-2 manoeuvre.
But coming back to the championship format of next season, it will stay the same as it is right now, basically, with the different types of races. Whether we will use the current points format or we will use the manual one, basically, we still have to decide, probably because it's just a 3-race season. We might go with the automatic once more. It will have the new penalty system in place, that's for sure. And it's basically just, I wouldn't say a send-off season for the Founders League, because, I mean, it will continue just with a different branding afterwards. But it should be like a highlight season, basically, of the 2 seasons here, because we had some really good racing in the first 2 seasons here in the Founders League, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We've had some really good races, so it'd be fitting to send it off with one last hurrah season.
I mean, if we think back to, for example, the very first race, which was won by Maximilian Dehn, but the comeback drive of Tim Schreider in that one, where we've also seen some names for the first time. I think Häusler was in there, for example, who is currently hunting down Adrian Lunio for the win.
He's doing very well at the minute. He's beaten his best time. His last lap was 8:07.9. He's still 3.5 seconds behind Lunio, but he's definitely seeing him at points in the track, which is always good motivation to push a little bit harder.
Very much so. I mean, motivation is a big part of the Nordschleife. As soon as you kind of lose your focus, lose your drive, it can spiral down a bit in a way. Even though Nordschleife driving in itself is very enjoyable and stuff, but to really be competitive, you have to stay on your A game throughout the track. And of course, that kind of is the same for all tracks, but on the Nordschleife especially, because it is such a fine line between just being on the maximum and what can happen if you just step over. On, for example, tracks like Spa, you go onto the one-off, you get a cut, and okay, that was too much, for example. But on the track like a Nordschleife, you get onto the curbing. Of course, you can lose the car, but even if you don't, you will lose time. You will always lose your time.
Yeah, it's got a very defined line that you have to follow, which is partly why overtaking's so difficult here. And it becomes about very small corrections and being precise on your line is where you pick up the speed.
The gap is staying quite consistent overall, I'd say. It's getting down 1/10 each sector, somewhat like that. Something.
Yeah, Hausler's slightly faster. It's not like a massive tumbling of the times, obviously. Hausler's set a purple sector in sector 3, so he's still pushing pretty good. It's come down a couple of tenths since the beginning of the lap, so he is closing, for sure. Dominic Ladler seems to be maintaining his gap over Pascal Jordan right now, which is just about a second.
Yeah, but Jordan had a very good exit out of Bergwerk. Now up the hill.
And you get to carry a lot of speed there.
I mean, this is a super steep climb. You will never really see it on video or in any game. I think in RENNSPORT the elevation change in itself is quite... You can feel it quite well. But still, you will never get as good of a perspective as by driving it in real life, basically. And it is super steep. You have to imagine the height difference you conquer, because we are now going through the carousel, and 3 turns later we are at the highest point of the track, and just 4 turns before Bergwerk you are at the lowest point of the track.
Yeah,
that's how steep it really is. Maybe I can find an inclination rate, but I mean, it's always hard to imagine with numbers in itself.
It's always a bit more telling, I think, in some of the lower power cars where the engines are really struggling to speed you up. If once you get into the higher gears, they just haven't quite got the grunt to push you up the hill any faster. So carrying the speed through the bottom corners is very important, because it really does carry that speed difference all the way up the hill. With the GT3s, it's a bit harder to notice because they have got so much power anyway. But it's definitely there.